Again, we appreciate you taking your time out of your schedule to join us for this period of Bible study, and I'm certainly happy to be able to join you for this study. Today, I want to ask a simple question, and that is, what is the relationship of Jesus and the law of Moses? Many people throughout the ages have had a difficult time understanding the relationship between Jesus and the law. But that's nothing new. Even during the days of Jesus, his own disciples, the Jews, had the same problem. The Jews had a problem understanding Jesus' relationship to the law because he was a different teacher than what they had ever heard before. He was so authoritative. He did not teach like the other rabbis had before him. He was not brought up in some rabbinical school. He was not a scribe or a Pharisee. He criticized the traditional interpretations of the law and spoke openly against the traditions which the Pharisees considered to be equal to the law. He even did not even try to observe them. And so naturally, some would ask then, well, does Jesus hate the law? Does he even believe in the law? Maybe he's out to destroy everything that they held sacred. And so in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus, to some extent, explains his relationship to the law. And we need to study that too, because there's so many people today who believe that the law of Moses is still in effect, or at least parts of it is. And they use, for example, Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 19. Let's read these few verses here. Do not think that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For surely I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, one jot or one tittle will by no means pass from the law till all is fulfilled. Whoever therefore breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so shall be called least to the kingdom of heaven. But he ever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Many people today think that Jesus did not come to destroy the law, therefore the law is still in effect. And they will quote this verse and say, well, see, Jesus said he did not come to destroy. Well, what does it mean to destroy? Well, the word destroy means to completely destroy something. The word is used 3 other times in the book of Matthew, each time in reference to destroying the temple. And of course, if you destroyed the temple, if you destroyed a building, then of course the building would cease to exist. There might be the stones and the blocks and stuff that made up the building, but it would just be a jumbled mess. There would be no building left to it. And so in the same sense then, if you destroy the law, then you completely abolish the law so that it was completely worthless. And Jesus said he did not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill. Now, fulfill means to satisfy or complete something. For instance, 2 men make a contract, and when each completes its term, when each person completes the terms of the contract, it has thus been fulfilled. It has not been destroyed, but neither is it an active binding contract. And neither one is considered to be the enemy of the contract just because it has been fulfilled. And so the same, in a similar sense, is true of the law of Moses. Jesus came to fulfill the law, not to destroy the law. He even said the law would be as permanent as the heavens and the earth. He said, till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle would pass away. Now, the jot or the tittle would be the very smallest grammatical markings of the Hebrew language. It's very similar today to dotting the I or the crossing of the T. The little dots or the little dashes that makes a T from some other letter is the very smallest parts of the English language. And so when we try to say to someone that you need to make sure this is done exactly right, then we might use the expression, you need to make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed. In other words, look at even the very smallest markings and make sure everything is right. And so Jesus is saying that every part of the law, even the very smallest markings of the law, is very important. And none of it would pass away until all is fulfilled. Now, Jesus came to fulfill the law. That's what Jesus said he came to do. He came to fulfill the law. Once the law was fulfilled, though, it could and would be set aside. For instance, in Galatians chapter 3, verses 19, it said, what purpose then does the law serve? It was added because of transgressions until the seed should come to whom the promise was made. Well, that seed, of course, was Jesus. And so Jesus came to fulfill the law. That's what the very law itself said that the purpose of it was. It was to bear witness of Jesus. And it promised mankind that there would become another person who would fulfill the law. And of course, that was Jesus. And Jesus condemned anyone who annulled or abolished even the very least of these commandments. The law of Moses was so important that even the very least of the commandments should not be just simply set aside. Now, the law contained many commandments. The Jewish rabbis counted about 613 laws. Now, obviously, one cannot even remember all those laws, much less keep every single one of them. And so the Jews many times divided the law into heavier or greater laws and lesser laws. In other words, they said that some laws were more important than the others. So some of the lesser laws, you could break some of those, but be sure and do not break the great commandments. And Jesus is saying here that you cannot even break any of the laws. Now, Jesus is not really saying there really is such a thing as heavy laws or big laws and small laws, but he's simply using the language of the Jews. So that even the very smallest commandments, even the ones that they considered to be the least important, could not be simply just set aside as if it was unimportant. Now, today, many want to say that the law is still binding because, as Jesus says, he did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. And since he did not abolish the law, therefore it is still in force. But again, I ask the question, what purpose does a fulfilled contract serve? You know, once a contract has been fulfilled, then it is set aside. It serves no purpose anymore. Why keep it around? And in Matthew chapter 5, I think we clearly see that Jesus himself said that one day the law would pass away. Notice in verse 18, he said, till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle will by no means pass from the law until all is fulfilled. Notice Jesus said nothing of the law would pass until all is fulfilled. But when Jesus said when all is fulfilled, that implies that once it is fulfilled, then it would cease to exist or it would be taken away. Now, some might wonder, well, what's the difference? What's the difference between fulfilling the law and abolishing the law? In each case, the law doesn't really serve any purpose. In each case, we're no longer bound by the law. Well, the difference is between abolishing and fulfilling is like taking a seed and crushing it with a rock or planting it in the ground. If you take a seed, you crush it with a rock, then of course it is dead. It serves no purpose. But when you take a seed and plant it in the ground, then of course it comes up and produces another plant. It fulfills its purpose. In both cases, the seed ceases to exist. But in one case, it simply was abolished, destroyed. In the other case, it fulfilled its purpose. No, Jesus did not come to destroy the law. He came to fulfill the law. That is, it fulfills its purpose. And since the law has fulfilled its purpose, then it would be taken away. You know, some people today try to divide the law rather into two different types of law, the moral law and the ceremonial law. The ceremonial law has been abolished. The moral law, like the Ten Commandments, for instance, would still be in force. Well, there is no such division like that in the Bible. And who has the right to decide whether a law is moral or ceremonial? What man has the right to make those decisions? For example, the Ten Commandments says nothing about loving God or loving our fellow man. Is that a moral law or is that a ceremonial law? I think all agree that we need to love God and we certainly need to love our fellow man. But the Ten Commandments says nothing about it. Yet man would say, is that a moral law or a ceremonial law? Most time people say that if it's not in the Ten Commandments, then it's simply a ceremonial law. If that's true, then love would be a ceremonial law which would have been taken away. You know, Jesus has established a new covenant for a new age, that is the Christian age. Now, many of those same eternal principles that were in the Old Testament, the old law, has obviously been incorporated into this new law. And we keep those things not because the old law says it, but because the new covenant has been put in force, and which contains those same principles. Even the law itself told us that one day this law would pass away and would be fulfilled and would be into another law. For example, in Hebrews chapter 8 in verse 13, he said, a new covenant, talking about the Christian age we're now under. He said he has made the first obsolete. Now what is becoming obsolete and growing old is ready to vanish away. Indeed, even the law itself said there's going to be replaced by a new law. And that law, of course, is the law that Jesus came and established. Jesus ultimately fulfilled the law and the prophets. But at this time, when he was preaching the Sermon on the Mount, it had not been fulfilled yet. Thus, he taught his disciples to continue to fulfill and live by the law. But once he died on the cross, then it was taken away, and it was no longer valid to provide any source of authority for us. Therefore, we see that today we're not living under the Old Testament law. Therefore, the law does not provide any guidance or any authority by which we should guide our lives today. Today, we're guided by the New Testament or the New Covenant, the words of Jesus and the apostles, as it was revealed to them by the Holy Spirit. Therefore, those are the laws, those are the things that we live by today. Not the Old Testament, not the old law. It has been fulfilled and taken away by the coming of Jesus and his death on the cross. Therefore, may we study the old law and use it. It is still worth something, but is not providing authority for how we should live in our life today. I hope this lesson kind of helps you understand, at least to some brief extent, the relationship between Jesus and the law and how our relationship to the law should exist. If you have any questions, feel free to call, and we'll be more than happy to discuss this further with you. Thank you for your attention today.